I'm Michael Bennett, 45 years old, an accountant living in Lancaster, Ohio. For years, I quietly paid every bill, every medical expense, every family dinner, believing that love meant sacrifice. But one afternoon, I returned to my mother's house with my son and found our belongings tossed onto the porch like trash. The family I supported, sheltered, erased me as if I had never existed. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I work at Lancaster Financial, checking ledgers, preparing reports, and often putting in overtime to keep everything balanced. But my bank account rarely balances like the spreadsheets I manage. I provided for my family, my mother, Dorothy, my sister Lillian, and even tuition for Jacob, Lillian's son. I paid utility bills, repaired the roof on the Maple Street house, bought a new car for Lillian when she complained. I kept every receipt, every transaction, but never bragged about it. To me, it was just what you do. That day, I drove to my mother's house on Maple Street, carrying a tray of ribs I'd spent all afternoon preparing. Noah, my 10-year-old son, sat in the back seat, clutching a stuffed dinosaur, his head tilted against the seat, fast asleep. He still held a small Lego piece, something he carried everywhere. I didn't want to wake him, but I also didn't want to walk into my mother's house alone. I gently shook his shoulder. "Hey buddy, we're here." Noah blinked, rubbing his eyes. "Is there cake, Dad?" I smiled, though I knew the chances of cake were slim. "Maybe," I said, keeping my tone upbeat. My mother's house was ablaze with light from the dining room, shadows moving behind the windows. I stepped onto the porch, one hand holding the ribs, the other grasping Noah's. Emily, my ex-wife, had offered to come along, but I told her to rest. She'd been working night shifts all week, and I thought, naively, that bringing Noah would soften the mood. My mother opened the door before I knocked. "Michael," she said, her voice just polite enough. "You're a few minutes late." I held up the tray. "I brought the ribs you like." She didn't glance at the tray, just looked at Noah, then passed us to the street, shoes off at the door. Inside, the house smelled of grilled meat and floor cleaner. The dining table was set, 6 gleaming place settings, napkins folded like fans. I glanced at the table, then looked again. No seat for Noah, not even a stool from the kitchen. "Guess Noah can sit with me," I said softly, setting the ribs down, pulling back a chair, and settling my son on my lap. Lillian, my sister, looked up from her phone, smirking. "Letting him eat off your plate, that's cute." I forced a smile. "We manage." Dinner began as it always did. Stiff smiles, the clink of silverware, talk of weather, the Lancaster Fair, gas prices. I sipped water, trying to keep my breathing steady. Noah carefully speared a rib with his fork, knocking over a breadstick. No one offered a napkin. Midway through, Lillian stood, holding a cream-colored envelope. "Mom, a little something for my bonus," she said, handing it to her. Mom took it with both hands, eyes glowing. "You're so thoughtful, Lillian. Always have been." I chewed slower. 2 days earlier, I'd sent Mom $1,500 through the banking app. She'd called, voice choked, talking about skyrocketing electric bills and a broken car. I sent the money right away, my name clear on the receipt, but no one mentioned it. I said nothing, just stared at my plate. Noah touched my arm, whispering, "Dad, the ribs are good." I ruffled his hair, forcing a smile. Mom glanced at the rib tray. "Yours, Michael?" I nodded. She smiled, loud enough for the table to hear. "Still haven't learned to grill right, have you?" Lillian laughed too quick. "Rebecca, my cousin, chuckled." Noah looked up, brows furrowed. "But I like it," he said. I put a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, buddy. I'll do better next time." I smiled, but inside, a bitter feeling spread, as if a piece of me had been erased. After dinner, as I washed dishes in the kitchen, Lillian passed by, her phone glowing. I caught a glimpse of a message. "He's still trying to please everyone. So pathetic." I stood there, hands wet, watching her silhouette vanish through the doorway. Back home, I sat at the dining table, staring at the leftover ribs. Noah had fallen asleep on the drive, still clutching his stuffed dinosaur. I looked at him in the rearview mirror, telling myself I did it all for him, for family. But deep down, I started to wonder, do they even see me, or am I just a shadow to them? I thought of the bills, the transfers, Mom's promises that family will always be there. But the image of Noah, without a seat at the table, haunted me, like a small crack in my heart. The days after that dinner at Mom's, I couldn't shake the image of Noah on my lap. No chair of his own, And Lillian's words, he's still trying to please everyone. So pathetic. I told myself it was just a moment. That family was still where I belonged. But the crack in my heart grew, like a flaw in glass, invisible but undeniable. I kept working at Lancaster Financial, burying myself in numbers to forget the bitterness. But every time I opened the banking app, I saw my balance shrink from family expenses, utilities for Mom, car repairs for Lillian, Jacob's tuition. I did it all without expecting thanks, but their silence started to suffocate me. One morning, my boss, Mr. Hughes, called me into his office. "Michael, you need to focus," he said sternly. "This month's report had errors. Keep this up, and you'll miss out on leading the next project." I nodded, promising to improve, but I knew the late nights checking family bills were wearing me down. That weekend, I went back to Mom's on Maple Street, bringing a tray of roasted chicken I'd carefully prepared, hoping this time would be different. Noah sat in the back seat, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, humming softly. "Dad, will I get a chair this time?" he asked, voice innocent. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "I'll make sure, buddy," I said, though I wasn't sure how. Mom's house was the same, the smell of floor cleaner mixed with stale coffee. She opened the door, voice flat. "Michael, you're here." I held up the tray. "I brought the chicken you like." She nodded faintly, her eyes skimming over Noah. Shoes off at the door, I stepped inside, one hand holding the tray, the other Noah's. The dining table was set. 6 gleaming place settings, napkins folded neatly. I looked at the table, my heart sinking. No seat for Noah again. "Guess Noah can sit with me," I said softly, pulling out a chair and settling my son on my lap. Lillian looked up from her phone, smirking. "Still letting the kid eat off your plate? That's cute." I forced a smile, trying to ignore her. Dinner started with stiff smiles, clinking silverware, and talk of weather, the Lancaster fair, gas prices. I sipped water, keeping my breathing steady. Noah carefully took a piece of chicken, dropping a breadstick. No one offered a napkin. That night, back at the apartment, I sat at the dining table, staring at the leftover chicken, still good, untouched. I thought of Noah, of him having no seat, of his eyes when Mom and Lillian mocked my cooking. I recalled years ago when I paid for Mom's heart surgery. Lillian brought a flower basket, and Mom hugged her, thanking her profusely. I stood there, silent, thinking she'd understand, but she never mentioned my money. I opened my phone, saw a message from Emily. "Michael, you need to stop supporting your family. It's dragging you and Noah down." I didn't reply, just turned off the screen. I wanted to believe they'd see me, that they'd understand what I did. But Noah on my lap, with no place at the table, haunted me. I started to wonder, am I sacrificing for people who don't see me? Am I making myself a shadow in my own family? That weekend, I decided to take Noah to Clearwater Park, a few hours drive from Lancaster. Just a short trip, renting a small cabin by the lake where Noah could run and draw colorful pictures. "I'll draw one for Grandma," Noah said, clutching a crumpled sketch with scribbled lines. I smiled through the rearview mirror. "She'll love it, buddy. You draw so well." Emily texted, asking about the trip. "Don't let your family drag you down, Michael," she wrote. I didn't reply, just held Noah's hand tighter as we walked to the lake. On the way back, Noah sat in the back, humming, still holding his drawing. I felt lighter, as if a few days away from Lancaster helped me breathe easier. But as I turned onto Maple Street, my stomach tightened. On Mom's porch, a line of our stuff was clear in the sunlight. My suitcase, plastic trash bags bulging at the corners. A box with my laptop and chargers. Noah's toy basket tilted, his stuffed dinosaur poking out, like it was trying to escape. Noah squinted. "Dad, is that our stuff?" I didn't answer. I parked slowly, stepped out, legs heavy. Noah followed, still holding his drawing. I walked to the porch, heart pounding, and knocked twice. The door creaked open an inch, showing Mom's face through the slit. She wasn't angry or warm, just blank. "It's time you stood on your own, Michael," she said calmly, like reciting a script. "We talked about this." "We didn't," I said, blinking, trying to keep my voice steady. Lillian appeared behind her, arms crossed. "You've been here too long, Michael. It's not personal. We voted." Her voice was cold, like discussing a business deal. "Voted," I echoed, my voice breaking. "Majority agreed," Lillian went on. "We need to prioritize stability." "Stability?" I gave a hollow laugh. "You mean your comfort?" Mom closed the door a bit more. Don't make this harder, Michael. I stood there, hands shaking, at a loss for words. Noah grabbed my hand, his voice tiny. Did I do something bad, Dad? I knelt, wiping away tears about to fall. No, buddy, not you. My phone buzzed. A message from Claire, my best friend, with a screenshot of a family group chat I wasn't in. Everyone agrees. He's gotta go. Don't drag it out. He's had enough time. It's sad. Lillian wrote. I'll handle it. Just act normal around him. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. Emily had warned me about my family, but I didn't believe her. Now the truth hit me, sharp as winter wind. We loaded what we could into the car. Suitcase, toy basket, a few trash bags. The rest I'd come back for. I didn't cry. Not then. I drove to the Moonlight Lodge on Lancaster's outskirts, where the air smelled of air freshener and mildew. Noah curled up on the bed, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, quickly falling asleep. I sat in the corner, opening the family group chat on my phone. I read each message, each name, that once called me son, brother, cousin. I let them sink in, then deleted them all. That night, I didn't sleep. The lodge pillows were too thin, the air too dry, the silence too loud. Noah lay beside me, chest rising, and falling with the soft rhythm of a child who hadn't fully grasped what happened. I watched him, tracing his face in the dim light from the curtains. I used to think I did all this for him, for family. But seeing our stuff on the porch, I knew something had shifted. I recalled years ago, when I paid for Mom's roof repair. Lillian showed up with a vase of flowers, and Mom hugged her, thanking her endlessly. I stood there, silent, thinking she'd understand. But she never mentioned my money. I opened my laptop, checked my bank account. Dozens of transactions for Mom, Lillian, Jacob. I kept every receipt, but now I wondered, did anyone in the family ever see me? Or was I just a wallet they dipped into? The next morning, I took Noah to Claire's so he could rest. Claire looked at me, saying nothing, but her eyes were full of concern. You okay? She asked. I just nodded, not wanting to talk. I drove back to the Cedar Lane apartment, but didn't go in. I sat in the car, looking at Noah's stuffed dinosaur in the back seat, and for the first time, I felt not just overlooked, but completely erased. The days after our belongings were thrown onto my mother's porch, I felt like I was living in a hazy dream. The image of Noah's stuffed dinosaur poking out of the toy basket, my mother's cold gaze through the cracked door, and the family group chat I wasn't part of haunted me. I took Noah to stay with Claire for a few days, saying I needed time to sort things out. But the truth was, I didn't know where to begin. I only knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I went back to work at Lancaster Financial, but my mind wasn't there. The numbers on the screen blurred, and I had to check reports 3 times. Mr. Hughes, my boss, called me into his office again. Michael, you're losing focus, he said sternly. If you don't improve, you could miss out on leading the big project next month. I nodded, promising to try harder. But as I left his office, my chest felt heavy. I wasn't just worried about work, but about Noah, about his future. If I couldn't keep things stable. That night, at the Moonlight Lodge, I opened my laptop, not for work but to find something to make sense of what happened. I checked my bank account, scrolling through dozens of transactions, sent to Mom and Lillian, utility bills, roof repairs, a new car, Jacob's tuition. Each one was a piece of the sacrifice I never boasted about. But what stopped me was an old email from 2019, buried in the archive folder. Subject, Bennett family will draft for review. I clicked it, my breath catching. In the first draft my name was clear, primary heir to the Maple Street house, where my grandfather once lived. I remembered sweaty summers mowing his lawn, listening to his stories of the old days. But 6 months later, another document appeared. Same lawyer, same title. This time my name was gone. Lillian's was there instead. I toggled between the files, unblinking, as if staring long enough could change the truth. Memories flooded back. That year when my grandfather needed a new ventilator, I sent the money to buy it. He held my hand saying, "You're my pride." But soon after, Lillian started showing up more often. Always with pastries and a friend from college who studied law. I thought she just wanted to be close to him. But now I understood she'd been planning all along. I didn't cry. Not then. I forwarded the files to Claire, freelance journal. I didn't cry, not then. I forwarded the files to Claire, a freelance journalist who once studied law. I backed them up on a USB and uploaded them to the cloud, as if afraid the truth would vanish if I didn't hold it tight. I remembered Emily's words. Your family doesn't see you, Michael. They only see what you give. I'd brushed it off, thinking she didn't understand. But now, sitting in the lodge room with the smell of air freshener, I wondered if she was right. I texted Emily. Just one line. Maybe you were right. She replied instantly. Call me if you need to talk. I didn't call. Not ready yet. A few days later, Lillian texted, inviting me and Noah to the opening of a reading nook at Lancaster Primary School. Jacob will be on stage, she wrote, her tone dry, devoid of warmth. I didn't want to go, but Noah overheard, his eyes lighting up. I want to see cousin Jacob, he cheered. I couldn't say no. I wrapped a small book, The Little Blue Truck, a gift Noah wanted to give Jacob, and took him to the school. We sat in the back row, in an auditorium full of proud parents. Lillian stood up front, wearing a navy dress, smiling like she belonged to another world. Then the principal took the podium, voice booming. We thank our generous donor who made this reading nook possible, Mrs. Lillian Harper. Applause erupted. Noah clapped, then looked at me, confused. Dad, wasn't that your money? I didn't answer right away, just clapped slowly, as if my hands were burning. I remembered the funds I'd transferred from the company account, thinking it would help the kids, that I didn't need my name on a plaque. I leaned down, whispering to Noah. Sometimes, when you give too much, people forget who gave. Noah tilted his head. That's not fair. I nodded. No, it's not. Lillian caught my eye. She didn't look away. Instead, she smiled, a subtle smirk, daring me to ruin her moment. I did nothing. I stayed until the end, clapping when Jacob read 2 lines on stage. Noah beamed, but I smiled like a background actor in someone else's play. Afterward, I didn't greet the family. I took Noah outside, sitting on a bench under an oak near the parking lot. Noah drew a robot in his notebook, the breeze rustling the pages. That night, Claire called. You sound exhausted, she said, after I briefly recounted the event. I'm tired, but not the kind sleep fixes, I replied. She waited, as always. I sent the money for the reading nook from the company account, I said. I didn't put my name on it because I thought the results would speak for themselves, but Lillian took all the credit. Like always, Claire was silent, then said, Michael, you keep hoping they'll become people they never promised to be. You're not invisible because they don't see you. You're invisible because you keep standing behind them. Her words cut like a knife, not painful but sharp. I stared out at the dark park, beyond the lodge window, the phone warm in my hand. I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because I'd cried too much for people who never blinked. You're allowed to stop, Claire said. They're not going anywhere else. I whispered thanks, promising to call back. But after hanging up, I sat still for a long time. A void began forming in my chest. Not anger, but space. Space to breathe. I couldn't keep pretending I wasn't hurt, that my family hadn't deliberately erased me. I looked at Noah, still drawing colorful pictures in the Moonlight Lodge room, and knew I had to do something. Not just for me, but for my son. I started by opening my laptop. Not for Lancaster financial reports, but to record a video. I named the channel Silent Supports, a simple name that said it all. I sat in front of the webcam, the desk lamp lighting my face, and said, Hello. If you've sacrificed for family without recognition, this video is for you. I talked about years of paying bills, fixing houses, buying cars, and how my family threw mine and Noah's belongings onto the porch like trash. I didn't name Lillian or Mom, but anyone in the family would know. I uploaded the video, expecting little, thinking it was just a way to let go. But before going public with everything, I needed proof. I remembered the bank transactions, the altered will, and Lillian's defiant smile at the reading nook ceremony at Lancaster Primary. I knew an opportunity would come, and it came sooner than I thought. A week later, I got an invite to a charity event at Lancaster Town Hall, where I donated 3 boxes of canned goods. I decided to go, not to boast, but to observe. At the event I wore a simple navy suit, standing in the corner, holding a glass of water. Lillian arrived, stunning in a red dress, laughing with everyone like she owned the room. I watched quietly, phone ready in my pocket. As she stood near the drink table, talking to a friend, I heard her voice clearly. Of course I used Michael's money. He's too weak to fight back. Always has been. I didn't turn, didn't breathe hard, just quietly hit record on my phone. 42 seconds of truth, clear and undeniable. I returned to Moonlight Lodge, edited the first video, adding Lillian's recording at the end. I uploaded it to YouTube with the description, "This is my story. Maybe it's yours, too." Claire was the first to share it, posting it to the Lancaster Families United Facebook group. Within hours, notifications flooded in. "I've been there too," one person wrote. "Thank you for speaking for us," another said. I read each comment, feeling like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. The family's reaction came fast. Lillian called, her voice trembling with rage. "Michael, are you trying to ruin the family? You want people to think I'm awful?" I didn't answer right away, just said, "I'm just telling the truth, Lillian." She hung up, but I knew she'd heard the recording. Mom texted, "You've disappointed me, Michael. How could you do this to your sister?" I looked at the message, my finger hovering over the screen, but didn't reply. For the first time, I felt lighter, as if I'd shed an invisible burden. The next morning, I checked the YouTube channel. The video had hundreds of views. A small number, but a whole world to me. Claire called, voice excited. "You did it, Michael. People are talking about your video." I smiled, the first time in days. "I just wanted to speak," I said. But deep down, I knew I'd done more. I'd stopped being a shadow. Work at Lancaster Financial remained stressful. Mr. Hughes called me in. This time not to warn, but to assign an urgent report. "You can handle it, right?" he asked. I nodded, but inside, I knew I needed balance. I couldn't let work pressure pull me down. Not now, when I'd just found my voice. Emily texted that evening. "I saw your video. I'm proud of you, Michael." I read it, a warmth creeping in. I replied, "Thanks, Emily. Maybe I'm learning to stand up." She sent back a heart emoji, and I knew that even though we're no longer married, she understands me more than my family ever did. That night, in the lodge room, I sat watching Noah sleep, his stuffed dinosaur in his arms. I thought of the years of silent sacrifice, the bills, the transfers, Mom's promises that family will always be there. I used to think I needed their recognition, but now I realized what I truly needed was to recognize myself. The YouTube video wasn't just a statement, it was my first step to reclaiming my place, not in the family, but in my own life. My YouTube video shook everything up. The comments from strangers, Claire's support, and Emily's proud message made me feel visible again. But the family's reaction, Lillian's anger and Mom's blame, reminded me that truth is never easy. I knew I couldn't stop. If I wanted justice, not just for me but for Noah, I had to see it through. I contacted Laura Mitchell, a lawyer Claire recommended, to sue over my grandfather's will and demand fairness. The days preparing for the trial, I barely slept. I gathered every piece of evidence, the 2019 will draft, naming me heir to the Maple Street house, the revision 6 months later, with Lillian's name, dozens of bank transactions for Mom and Lillian, and the recording of Lillian admitting she used my money. Claire helped me organize it all, while Emily called, her voice worried but firm. "You're doing the right thing, Michael. Don't let them make you doubt." I nodded over the phone, feeling like I finally had someone behind me. Work at Lancaster Financial was still a battle. Mr. Hughes gave me an urgent report, his eyes skeptical. "You up for this, Michael?" he asked. I nodded, but inside, I knew I couldn't let work pressure stop me. I worked late into the night, finishing reports and preparing for the trial. Noah sensed the tension, though I tried to hide it. "You okay, Dad?" he asked, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. I ruffled his hair. "I'm fine, buddy. Dad just has something important to do." The trial day arrived, and I walked into Lancaster's Central Courthouse, clutching a briefcase, Laura by my side. Courtroom 2A was small but heavy, filled with the smell of dust and old air conditioning. Lillian was already seated, lips sharply lined, blazer crisp. Mom sat beside her, wearing the pearl necklace I'd helped pick for her wedding anniversary. Rebecca, my cousin, whispered something in the back row. I looked at them, not with anger, but with clarity. I'd lived through real betrayal. This was just procedure. Laura began, her voice steady. She presented the 2019 will draft, naming me the primary heir to the Maple Street house. She pointed out the revision 6 months later, coinciding with Lillian's frequent visits to our grandfather, often with her lawyer friend. Next came bank transactions, utility bills, house repairs, a new car, Jacob's tuition, all from my account. Then the recording. When Lillian's voice echoed in the room. "Of course, I used Michael's money. He's too weak to fight back." No one moved. I looked at Mom, saw her freeze, her eyes wavering for the first time. Lillian's lawyer tried to argue she acted in the family's best interest, but the recording spoke for itself. My turn came, and I pulled from my briefcase the envelope Mom sent at Moonlight Lodge, two $20 bills, and the note. Hope this helps you settle. I stepped toward her, voice calm but clear. If you want to repay what I've given, adjust for inflation. I slipped a blank check into the envelope, handed it to her, and turned away. Mom said nothing, just gripped it tightly. Before leaving, I did one last thing. The wooden chair I bought for Noah, the one he used as a toddler, was kept by the family, claimed as theirs. I brought the receipt, proving it was mine. I walked to the corner where it sat, lifted it, and held it like a memory that belonged only to me and Noah. I left the courthouse, not looking back. Justice, I realized, isn't a shout. It's the truth. Intact, untouchable. Outside, sunlight filtered through oaks, making the stone floor sparkle. Claire waited in the parking lot, hugging me tightly. You did it, she said. I smiled, feeling lighter than ever. Emily texted. Noah and I are proud of you, I replied. Thanks. I'm proud of me too. I knew that. Though I didn't reclaim the house, I'd reclaimed something greater. My voice. Work remained a challenge. Mr. Hughes called me in, praised my latest report, but warned me to keep it up. I nodded, determined not to let pressure drag me down. I started planning to move Noah from the lodge, looking for a new apartment in Cedar Lane, where we could start fresh. Noah, as always, was my light. Can I bring my chair, Dad? He asked, pointing to the wooden chair from the trial. Of course, buddy, I said, ruffling his hair. That night, at Moonlight Lodge, I opened my laptop, checking the Silent Supports channel. The video had thousands of views, with comments from strangers sharing their stories. I read each one, feeling like I was finding myself again. I was no longer a shadow in my family. I was Michael Bennett, a father, a man, and now someone who dared to speak the truth. After the trial, I felt like I'd stepped out of a stifling room. Noah's wooden chair, the blank check I placed in Mom's hand, and her wavering look in court were the final marks of my journey. I didn't reclaim the Maple Street house, but I reclaimed something more myself. I knew Noah and I couldn't stay forever in Moonlight Lodge, where the smell of air freshener and memories of betrayal lingered. It was time to start over. I found a small apartment in Cedar Lane, not big, but cozy enough for us. On moving day, sunlight streamed through the windows, glinting off the freshly polished wood floor. I opened the last box, labeled Noah's books, and arranged his favorites on a shelf. The little blue truck, the very hungry caterpillar, and an old picture book about a talking truck. Noah loved to reread. Noah sat on a beanbag, drawing a new picture, humming a tune. For the first time in years, I felt I wasn't in a borrowed space. This was our home. The Silent Supports YouTube channel became a vital part of my new life. The first video, with Lillian's recording, drew thousands of views, but the comments from strangers touched me most. Thanks for speaking for me, one wrote. I've been overlooked by family too. Another shared. I read every line, replied to every comment, feeling like I was connecting with people I'd never met. The channel had over 70,000 subscribers, a number I never dreamed of. It wasn't just a YouTube channel. It was proof that speaking up could echo beyond years of silence. Work at Lancaster Financial was still a challenge, but I started finding balance. Mr. Hughes called me into his office, not to warn, but to praise my latest report. You're back on form, Michael, he said, a slight smile tugging at his lips. Next month's big project will need you. I nodded, confidence creeping back. I knew I couldn't let work pressure pull me down. Not now, with Noah and me building a new life. Emily visited one afternoon, bringing a box of cookies for Noah. He's growing so fast, she said, watching him race around with his stuffed dinosaur. We sat at the dining table, talking about days gone by. I'm proud of you, Michael, Emily said, her voice sincere. You stood up, not just for you, but for Noah. I smiled, warmth settling in. Thanks, Emily. Maybe it took me too long to get it. She placed her hand on mine, a small gesture that told me we still had a bond, even if we weren't married anymore. One afternoon, I took Noah to Silver Creek Park, where oaks cast long shadows and birds chirped. Noah ran ahead, stopping to play with a patch of dandelions. A breeze lifted their white seeds. Suddenly he asked, voice clear, Dad, will Grandma and Aunt Lillian ever say sorry? I paused, looking at the blue sky through the branches. Noah's question was like a pebble, rippling a still lake in my heart. I sat on a nearby bench, calling him over.
Maybe, I said slowly, but we're not waiting for it anymore, right? Noah nodded, as if my answer was obvious. He ran to the swings, laughing loudly, and I sat there, letting the quiet wrap around me. I thought of the years I waited for a thank you, a hug, a glance of recognition from Mom or Lillian, but now I realized I didn't need them. I'd found my worth, not through their acknowledgement, but through my own journey. Claire texted that evening, asking about plans for the next video. You're inspiring so many people, Michael, she wrote. I replied, I just want to tell my story, but if it helps someone, I'm glad. I opened my laptop, drafting a new video, titled, Taking Back Your Voice. I wrote slowly, carefully, each word a brick in the new home I was building for Noah and me. Noah's wooden chair stood in the corner, sturdy, no longer a piece of Mom's house, but a symbol of our independence. I looked at it, recalling the day I carried it from the courthouse, holding it like a memory only for me and my son. I didn't need the Maple Street house, the will, or an apology. I'd inherited something greater, myself. The phone buzzed one afternoon, as I was setting up my desk in the new Cedar Lane apartment. The screen showed Mom's name, Dorothy. I let it ring, letting voicemail catch it. When I played it, her voice came through, soft and hesitant. I didn't know you did so much, my swing, catch it. When I played it, her voice came through, soft and hesitant. I didn't know you did so much, Michael. I thought you'd always be there. I listened again, each word like a puzzle I just solved. No apology, just expectation, as if my presence was a given. Like the porch light, just expectation, as if my presence was a given. Like the porch light, or an empty room. I didn't reply. It wasn't necessary anymore. I sat down, opened my laptop. The screen's glow lighting. Noah's wooden chair in the corner. That chair, the one I brought back from the courthouse. The one I brought back from the courthouse was no longer a piece of Mom's house. It was a symbol of the journey I'd taken, of what I refused to carry. I started drafting a new video for the Silent Supports channel, titled Reclaiming Your Place. I wrote slowly, carefully, each word a step affirming I was what. I wrote slowly, carefully, each word a step affirming I was no longer a shadow. Noah slept soundly in the next room, his stuffed dinosaur still in his arms. I looked at my son, thinking of the years I sacrificed, the bills, the transfers, the promises for promises from Mom and Lily. I used to wait for recognition, but now I understood justice isn't about taking back what I lost. It's about refusing to carry burdens that aren't mine. I saved the video file, glancing at the wooden chair again. It didn't need a place at Mom's dining table. It didn't need a place at Mom's dining table. It had a place here, and I didn't have place here. In Noah's home. I didn't inherit the Maple Street house, a title or a legacy.
I inherited Maple Street house, a title, or a legacy. I inherited myself.
And that was all I needed.
The story of Michael Bennett and my parents never knew I supported them. Until our stuff was tossed, truth hit, and they regretted it. Reflects the family and social pressures many Americans face in modern life, particularly in today's U.S. culture, where individuals are often caught between traditional family expectations and the need to assert their own worth. Michael, a 45-year-old accountant in Lancaster, Ohio, quietly supported his family, from his mother Dorothy's medical bills, a new car for his sister Lillian, to tuition for his nephew Jacob, without recognition, mirroring a common reality. Many Americans, especially those in middle age, feel obligated to support extended family, sometimes at the cost of themselves. The family's betrayal, throwing Michael and Noah's belongings onto the porch, erasing him through a group chat, reveals the dark side of American family culture, where loyalty is sometimes exploited, and silence is mistaken for consent. Michael's journey, from exposing the truth on his YouTube channel, Silence Supports, to confronting his family in court, with evidence, the will, bank transactions, Lillian's recording, underscores the importance of speaking up in a society that values individualism yet remains influenced by family pressures. Noah's wooden chair, brought back from court, and the new Cedar Lane apartment symbolize spiritual freedom, reflecting American values of independence and self-reinvention. Dare to set boundaries and speak up when you're overlooked, even by family. In American culture, where self-reliance is celebrated, sacrifices like Michael's are admirable, but you shouldn't let them dim your worth. Learn from Michael, keep proof like his receipts, seek support from friends like Claire, and use platforms like social media to tell your story. Justice, as Michael realized, isn't about reclaiming what you lost, but refusing to carry burdens that aren't yours. If you're sacrificing silently, stand up, like Michael did with his YouTube video and wooden chair. to affirm you deserve to be seen and respected. Subscribe to the Silent Supports channel to share stories of sacrifice and silenced voices together. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next video.